Welcome to Spooky Ass Shit. I am your host, Eric Dwinells, and with me tonight, now this is a special occasion. Some people out there said this would never happen again. And yet,
I think I said that.
Yeah, you did. Here she is, ladies and gentlemen, Fatima Elmi.
Hello.
Welcome back.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
You just couldn't stay away.
I guess not. No.
Tonight, Fatima, we're going to be talking about the case of the Mary Celeste, which is one of the most famous ghost ships that you'll ever hear about.
Oh, okay.
But when I say ghost ship, don't get too excited because it's not actually a ghost story.
Oh, well, that's kind of sad.
Yeah, it's a ship. A ghost ship is a ship where you see it and then there's no crew or anything on the ship. They just disappear mysteriously.
Oh.
So that's what happens, spoiler alert, in tonight's story.
Intriguing. Okay.
But before we get into it, I want to remind everyone to check out the website, spookyasshit.com or spookyas.com. They both take you to the same place. That is the show's blog page. From there, you can listen to each and every episode, including the ones no longer available on iTunes. You can also find links to all of our social media. We are at Spooky Ass Shit on both Twitter and Instagram. And you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/spookyas. While you're there, don't forget to join the Spookaroos, our secret closed group where we can discuss all these stories and stories we come up with on our own in privacy, without everybody judging us for being weirdos and liking the things that we like.
That's nice.
It's a place to turn to for all true blue spookaroos.
Mm-hmm.
Like yourself, Fatima.
That's right.
I've seen you carrying that bag around.
I do. I have a Spookaroo bag.
Mm-hmm.
And a t-shirt.
Super fan.
And a sticker.
Oh, what'd you do with the sticker?
I mean, it's at my house.
It's just for sentimental purposes?
Yeah.
All right, Fatima, let's get right into it.
Okay.
Whoops. Let me click on the right thing. Here we are. Now, Fatima, the ship is famously known as the Mary Celeste, but actually it wasn't born that way.
Okay.
It was originally christened the Amazon.
Ooh, I like the Amazon.
Yeah, I thought you would. The ship was first launched on May 18th, 1861 as the Amazon, and the registration documents describe her as 99 feet in length and 25.5 feet across with a depth of 11.7 feet. She was owned by a local group of people, like 9 shareholders, I guess you'd call them. Mm-hmm. So these were co-owners, and they all had a stake in the ship. That's how they used to do it in the old days. You all owned like a piece of the ship and the profits that you would get from the shipping and stuff that it did.
Mm-hmm.
And one of these co-owners was the ship's first captain, Robert McClellan.
Okay.
And it seems, some people think that this is kind of a cursed ship, and it seemed to go bad like pretty much right from the start. Because the ship's maiden voyage was in June of 1861, when the Amazon sailed to 5 islands to take on cargo of timber that it was going to bring across the Atlantic over to London. And after he made sure that the cargo got on the ship and everything okay, Captain McKellen became sick.
Oh, God.
I don't know how. The reports I read didn't describe how, but he just became very ill on board the ship.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, no, just we'll set sail, keep going, I'll be fine. But he wasn't fine. So eventually the ship turned around and went back to one of those little islands. And it was there that this captain died on June 19th.
Oh, no.
So then this guy, John Nutting Parker, took over as captain. And they resumed the voyage heading towards London. But in the course of this voyage, the Amazon collided first with some fishing equipment in the Narrows off Eastport, Maine, and then it got to London okay after that. But then after leaving London, it ran into and sank another boat in the English Channel.
Well, something's going on with the Amazon.
Yeah. Parker remained captain for 2 years, during which the Amazon worked mainly in the West Indies, going back and forth across the Atlantic. She also traveled to France in November of 1861, and for the next 6 years, life was uneventful on the Amazon. It just was making these little runs back and forth across the Atlantic. Then, in October of 1867, on Cape Breton Island, the Amazon was driven ashore during a storm, and she was so badly damaged that her owners abandoned her as a wreck. On October 15th, she was acquired as a derelict ship by Alexander McBean of Glace Bay, Nova Scotia.
Oh, okay. Nova Scotia?
Yeah. That's in Canada.
Yes.
It's one of those islands.
Yes.
All right, just making sure. Now, McBean, I just want to point out, too, we get some fun names in this.
Okay.
McBean, and what was the other guy?
McClellan?
Nutter.
Oh, Nutter.
There was something like that. He had it in there, yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, within a few months, McBean sold the ship to a local businessman who sold it again to this guy, Richard W. Hines. He was from New York, and Hines said, I'm going to take this ship. He paid $1,750 for it, but then he spent almost $9,000 restoring the ship. He made himself the captain, and in December, he registered her December of 1868, he registered her with the Collector of Customs in New York as now an American vessel, and gave her a new name, the Mary Celeste.
Ah, yes.
But it doesn't say who Mary Celeste was. I'm assuming this was a real person. That's a specific name.
Yeah.
So you would think maybe he's naming it after a wife or a daughter or mom or something.
Right. I would think so.
But after all of this, he sold the ship to another group of investors, including the man who would become the new captain, Benjamin Spooner Biggs.
Spooner Biggs.
Yeah. Nope.
No.
That's a typo. It should be Briggs.
Oh, no.
Benjamin Spooner Briggs.
Spooner Briggs.
Yeah. You like that Spooner, huh?
I do.
Benjamin Briggs was born in Wareham, Massachusetts,
Oh.
on April 24th, 1835. He was one of 5 sons born to sea captain Nathan Briggs, and basically being a seaman was like the family trade. What was that face for?
I don't know.
Like I said something? That's what it's called.
Okay.
Yeah, these were all seamen, and all of the sons except for one went to sea eventually, and 2 of the sons became captains. And in 1862, he married his cousin, Sarah Elizabeth Cobb.
Okay. Keep it in the family.
I mean, it's olden days, I guess.
Yeah.
2 children were born. They had a son named Arthur in September of 1865, and a daughter named Sophia Matilda in October of 1870. Now, here's where our story really kicks in.
Oh, snap.
In October of 1872, Benjamin took command of the Mary Celeste for her first voyage following an extensive refit which took place in New York. So a refit, just like, those commercials where they're like, oh, we can take your entire bath out and put in a new one, like in just a matter of a day.
Right.
So that's like a refitting for a ship, I guess.
Okay.
But it's extensive.
Sure.
So it's almost like a whole new ship, or at least refitted. Is that what it's called? Bath refitters?
Yeah.
There's a reason this is popping into my head.
Yes. No, that is true. They do have those commercials where they take out your old tub and...
No, they just put like a new thing on top of it.
Oh, really?
I think so.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
know. Maybe I didn't pay enough attention. I haven't had commercial television in a long time.
True.
Anyway, ladies and gentlemen. Yes. He arranged for his wife and daughter to accompany him on this trip.
Okay.
But his school-age son was left at home with the grandmother.
Okay.
Because the younger daughter was too young to go to school.
Mm-hmm.
But they're like, well, we want Arthur to continue his schooling.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Briggs hand-selected the crew for his voyage. There were either 7 or 8, depending on which account you read, experienced crew members in all. In a letter to his mother shortly before the voyage, Briggs declared himself, quote, eminently satisfied with ship and crew.
Oh.
On October 20th, 1872, Briggs arrived at Pier 50 on the East River, New York City, to supervise the loading of the ship's cargo bound for Genoa. This cargo was 1,701 barrels of poisonous denatured alcohol.
Poisonous?
Yeah, do you know what denatured means?
No.
Denatured means that they purposely add something to it to make it so that you can't drink it.
Oh.
So it would be used for other purposes.
Okay.
I don't know what exactly. I didn't get into all that, but maybe like cleaning and stuff like that.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. On Sunday, November 3rd, Briggs wrote to his mother, telling her that he intended to leave on Tuesday night, adding that, quote, our vessel is in beautiful trim, and we shall have a fine passage. On Tuesday morning, November 5th, Mary Celeste left Pier 50 with Briggs, his wife and daughter, and all the crew members, and moved into New York Harbor. But bad luck appeared to follow the Mary Celeste from the start of this voyage. Bad weather delayed the ship's departure for 2 days, and she was docked in Staten Island at this time. On November 7th, the weather had eased, and Mary Celeste left the harbor and went out into the Atlantic. While the Mary Celeste prepared to sail, another ship, the Canadian De Grazia, lay in nearby Hoboken, New Jersey, awaiting a cargo of petroleum destined for Genoa via Gibraltar. Her captain, David Morehouse, and his first mate, Oliver Deveau, were Nova Scotians, both highly experienced and respected seamen.
Okay.
It is likely that Morehouse and Briggs knew each other, at least casually. Now, later in life, Morehouse's widow would say that they were actually close friends and that they had dinner together the night before the Mary Celeste set sail.
Okay.
But she's the only person saying this. And she said it 50 years after the fact.
Weird.
So we don't know if it's true or not, but
Okay.
that's what she says. De Grazia departed for Gibraltar on November 15th, which was 8 days after Mary Celeste, but it was following the same general route.
Mm-hmm.
De Grazia reached a position midway between the Azores and the coast of Portugal at about 1 p.m. on Wednesday, December 4th, 1872. As Captain Morehouse came on deck, the helmsman reported that he had spied a vessel about 6 miles distant, heading unsteadily towards their own ship. The ship's erratic movements and odd set of sails led Morehouse to suspect that something was wrong. As the vessel drew close, he could see nobody on deck, and he received no reply to his signals, so he sent Deveau and second mate John Wright to the ship's boat to investigate. From the name on her stern, the pair established that this was the Mary Celeste. Then they climbed aboard, and they found the ship deserted. The sails, which had only partially been set, were in poor condition. Some were missing altogether, and much of the rigging was damaged, with ropes hanging loosely over the side. The main hatch cover was secure, but others were open, their covers lying beside them on the deck. The ship's single lifeboat, a small yawl that had apparently been stowed across the main hatch, was missing, as was the ship's compass. There was about 3.5 feet of water in the hold, which is a significant amount of water, but not an alarming amount on a ship this size.
Mm-hmm.
A makeshift sounding rod, which is a device for measuring the amount of water in the hold, was found abandoned on deck. The last entry in the ship's daily log, found in the mate's cabin, was dated at 8 a.m. on November 25th, 9 days earlier. It recorded the Mary Celeste's position at that time as nearly 400 nautical miles from the point where De Grazia discovered her. Deveau saw that the cabin interiors were wet and untidy from water that had entered through the doorways and skylights, but were otherwise in reasonable order. In Briggs' cabin, Deveau found personal items scattered about, including a sheathed sword under the bed. but most of the ship's papers were missing, along with the captain's navigational instruments. Galley equipment was neatly stowed away, and there was no prepared food or any food under preparation, but there were ample provisions in the stores. There were no obvious signs of fire or violence. The evidence pointed towards an orderly departure from the ship by means of the missing lifeboat. So I'm going to pause the narrative here, Fatima, and I want to get your impressions so far. Do you have any thoughts or theories? And obviously you don't have enough information to make a conclusive.
I don't.
But what springs to mind when you hear this?
I don't know. Maybe they were captured by people.
Okay.
Pirates captured them, took them onto their boat. I don't know.
Okay.
Where are they?
Well, that's what this whole show is about. If we knew the answer, we probably wouldn't be talking about it.
True.
DeVoe returned to report these findings to Captain Morehouse, who decided to bring the derelict into Gibraltar, which was about 600 nautical miles away. Under maritime law, a salver, which is someone who brings in a ship that's been abandoned, or, he's salvaging a ship, basically, could expect a substantial share of the combined value of the rescued vessel plus its cargo.
Oh.
But the exact award depended on the degree of danger inherent in salvaging the ship.
Okay.
Morehouse divided de Grazie's crew of 8 between the two vessels, sending DeVoe and 2 experienced seamen to the Mary Celeste, while he and 4 others remained on de Grazie. The weather was relatively calm for most of the way till Gibraltar, but with each ship seriously undermanned, because normally it's a crew of 8 people,
right,
each one, and now there's only 4.
Right.
Progress was slow. De Grazia reached Gibraltar on December 12, 1872, and the Mary Celeste, which had encountered fog, arrived the following morning. She was immediately impounded by the Vice Admiralty Court, preparatory to salvage hearings. DeVoe wrote to his wife of the ordeal of bringing the ship in. DeVoe wrote to his wife that the ordeal of bringing the ship in was such that, quote, "I can hardly tell what I am made of, but I do not care so long as I got in safe. I shall be well paid for the Mary Celeste."
Ooh, that sounds shady.
Mm-hmm.
Shady.
The salvage court hearings began in Gibraltar on December 17th, 1872, under Sir James Cochrane, the Chief Justice of Gibraltar. The hearing was conducted by Frederick Solly Flood, Attorney General for Gibraltar, who was also the Advocate General and the Proctor for the Queen in her Office of Admiralty. The testimonies of Devereux and Wright convinced Flood unalterably that a crime had been committed. A belief picked up by the New York Shipping and Commercial List on December 21st. Quote, "The inference is that there has been foul play somewhere, and that alcohol is at the bottom of it."
Really?
The official investigation discovered deep cuts in each side of the bow, caused, they thought, by a sharp instrument. Possible traces of blood were found on the captain's sword. The report emphasized that the ship did not appear to have been struck by heavy weather. The report concluded that the ship had not been involved in a collision or run aground. A further inspection by a group of Royal Navy captains agreed that the cuts on the bow had been caused deliberately. They also discovered stains on one of the ship's rails that might have been blood, together with deep marks possibly caused by an axe. These findings strengthened Flood's suspicions that human wrongdoing rather than natural disaster lay behind this mystery. On January 22nd, 1873, he sent these reports to the Board of Trade in London, adding his own conclusion that the crew had got at the alcohol and murdered the Briggs family and the ship's officers in a drunken frenzy. They had cut the bows to simulate a collision, then fled in the yawl to suffer an unknown fate. Flood also thought that Morehouse and his men were hiding something. Specifically, he thought that they were covering up for the fact that the Mary Celeste had been abandoned in a much more easterly location than what had been reported, and that they doctored the ship's journals to reflect this.
Really?
He could not accept that the Mary Celeste could have traveled so far completely unmanned. Flood thought that the ship's majority stakeholder, James Winchester, might have deliberately hired a crew that would kill Briggs and his officers as part of some conspiracy to collect insurance money on the ship, the crew, and the cargo. On January 29th, during a series of exchanges with Flood, Winchester testified to Briggs' high character, his religiosity, you know what I mean, his high character, and insisted that he would not have abandoned ship except in some form of extremity. Flood's theories of mutiny and murder received significant setbacks when scientific analysis of the stains found on the sword and elsewhere on the ship showed that they were not, in fact, blood. A second blow to Flood's theory followed in a report commissioned by Horatio Sprague, the American consul in Gibraltar. This report states that the marks on the bow were not man-made, but came from natural actions of the sea and the ship's timbers. With nothing concrete to support his suspicions, Flood reluctantly released the Mary Celeste from the court's jurisdiction on February 25th. 2 weeks later, with a locally raised crew headed by Captain George Blatchford of Massachusetts, Mary Celeste left Gibraltar and finished her trip to Genoa. The question of salvage payment was decided on April 8th, when Cochrane announced the award, $1,700, or just about one-fifth of the total value of the ship and cargo. This was far lower than the general expectation. One authority thought that the award should have been twice or even 3 times that amount, given the level of hazard bringing the derelict into port. Cochrane's final words were harshly critical of Morehouse, and for his decision, early in the hearing, to send de Grazie under Devoe to continue to deliver its cargo of petroleum, although Morehouse had remained in Gibraltar to be at the disposal of the court. Cochrane's tone when speaking to Morehouse carried an implication of wrongdoing. So he's like, we're going to let you go, but it seems fishy.
Yeah.
Like you're super into money.
So wait, who's going to get that money?
Morehouse,
because he's the one that brought in the ship.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably Devoe gets some too, when the crew members or whatever. I don't know how they split it up exactly, but Morehouse. That's why Morehouse stayed.
Yeah.
During the hearings,
right?
He's like, no, I'll stay right here. You go.
So shady.
Now you laid out a theory, but now that you've heard more information,
yeah,
is there anything else popping into your mind?
No, I think it was Morehouse. Because he knew that if he brought in that ship, then he would get money.
Okay, but so you think what? You think him and his crew went and...
I don't know what happened.
But you think he had something to do with it?
Yeah.
Well, you're not alone. That is one of the theories.
Okay.
So obviously, foul play was the theory that was around back in the day. That's what the court seemed to believe, even though they couldn't prove it, and so they had to kind of let things go.
Yeah.
But foul play, although the evidence in Gibraltar failed to support Flood's theory of murder and conspiracy, the suspicion of foul play has lingered, just as it does in your mind.
Yeah.
Insurance fraud on part of Winchester was briefly suspected on the grounds of newspaper reports that the Mary Celeste had been heavily overinsured.
Oh.
But Winchester was able to refute these allegations, and no inquiry was instituted by the insurance companies that issued the policies. And if the insurance companies just accept that, no, this wasn't, it wasn't some crazy insurance fraud.
Yeah.
There's probably a good reason for that, because insurance companies aren't known for their generosity.
Right. Yeah.
So maybe it was all really on the level. In a 1931 article in the Quarterly Review, it was suggested that Morehouse could have lain in wait for Mary Celeste. Then Lord Briggs and his crew aboard de Grazie and killed them there. But the problem with this ignores something. De Grazie left New York 8 days after Mary Celeste.
Right.
It was a slower ship, And there was no way that it would have been able to catch up to Mary Celeste before the Mary Celeste reached its destination in Gibraltar.
Okay.
So that didn't happen. So it seems very unlikely, unless they happened to come across, like maybe Mary Celeste got stranded somehow.
Yeah.
And the captain and crew were in trouble, and then Morehouse kind of
They
decided,
caught up.
like, oh, hey, while we're here, we might as well kill you and take over. Which seems a little unlikely to me.
But didn't someone say something about their logs being, like the books being altered?
Yeah, right. But that's just about the location.
Oh.
But but still, people in port would know, like, oh, this ship left on this day and this one left on this day.
Mm-hmm. Right. You can't alter that.
Right.
Okay.
So I think that they probably really did leave 8 days apart, and that it probably was impossible for him to catch up.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean maybe he had hired somebody else to be in wait.
True.
Maybe a pirate crew, like you were talking about.
Pirates.
Again, seems unlikely, but we're just considering possibilities here, right?
Right.
There's also theories that the two captains were actually in on it together.
Really?
Yeah. Like this was a whole scam that like Briggs had worked up, and he was like, okay, we'll go, and then like a few days later you come and pick us up, and we'll like hide in your ship or whatever.
And you'll just make up this whole story?
Yeah. And then we'll like split the money or whatever that might be. But we don't have proof that they really did like really know each other. It's likely that they did, we think, but aside from the widow saying 50 years later.
Yeah.
And also that does leave the question, if that was the plan, why would he leave his 7-year-old son behind?
Right. Yeah, I don't think that was the plan.
Yeah.
But could Winchester, could he had set up like a whole other boat be in the vicinity?
Well, that's I guess that's possible, but that's one of the things that they did mention was that maybe, like I said when I was reading that maybe he had a crew.
Yeah.
He had purposely hired the crew.
Oh, the crew that was...
They did like a mutiny, basically.
Yeah.
And like, because...
Well, where did that crew... Oh.
I'm under the impression that Briggs chose the crew.
Right.
As the captain and, a stakeholder in the ship. But maybe this guy had some people put in and was like, hey, give these guys a job. Because there's specifically 2 crew members that they bring up. These 2, I think they were Russian brothers. That people bring up as like suspects.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
And then we don't even know what happened to them because they probably...
none of these people were seen again. But Sir Arthur Conan Doyle wrote a story about this. He's the guy that wrote Conan. Sherlock Holmes.
Right.
And he wrote a story. And you know who he blames?
Who?
A black guy.
Oh, of course.
Even back then.
Even back then.
Yeah, he says it was an enraged...
What black guy? From where? Where did the black guy come from? Where'd that even come from?
It was an enraged ex-slave.
Who was where?
Just
where was he? Just chilling?
Yeah.
Okay. A disgruntled ex-slave?
Yeah.
Just chilling in the ocean? All right. I don't buy that theory.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Other theories have suggested attacks by pirates. Fatima's own theories.
Hello.
And there were active pirates off the coast of Morocco at this time. But if it was pirates, Fatima, how come they didn't take anything off the ship? Aside from like some instruments to, ship instruments. They didn't take like the personal property and stuff of value.
Yeah.
They didn't steal any of the cargo.
They didn't because the people were more valuable? I don't know.
But nothing happened with the people.
We don't know that. We don't know what
we never
happened
heard
to the
from 'em.
people.
Right.
Where are those people? All right. So pirates normally would have taken the stuff
They
that
would have
was
looted
on
the ship. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. No. Okay. You're right.
The only thing missing from this was some papers. And the ship's like compass and some like other guidance equipment.
Yeah, see, that's why I feel like it all points to Morehouse. I think he did it to get that money, the insurance money.
Yeah. What about this? Have you considered that it might have been a giant octopus or other sea monster?
No.
No?
No. No.
It's just a theory that's out there.
Really?
Marks on the ship, instead of swords, could have been a sharp hit. I'm doing a motion here with a tentacle.
No.
Breaking up the wood.
Okay.
With karate chops.
Yeah. And then what? Ate the people?
Or just got him up, threw him overboard.
Well, how many people were on the ship?
10.
There were 10. Okay. I don't.
That's like a snack to a kraken.
That's like a snack to a kraken. Okay. I don't know if I buy that one.
What about some natural phenomena?
Such as?
Well, let me tell you.
Okay.
Most people agree that the experienced and reliable captain and crew would not have just left the ship without a good reason. So if they left the ship, there had to be solid reasons why. One possible explanation for this is the appearance of a displaced iceberg. It's thought that they might have had some trouble with the ship for various reasons, one of which I'll get into later on.
Okay.
And that they thought the ship became unsafe for some reason. And they thought that they were seeing land. They were actually seeing an iceberg off in the distance.
Oh.
But they thought, we'll get in the lifeboat, we'll get off this boat, we'll get to safety. And
so they got off themselves.
Right. And when they get there, it's only an iceberg. And it wasn't even an island, so maybe they didn't even reach it because it drifted away.
Right. Oh. Well,
so
I mean,
that's one thing.
Yeah.
Or it could have been what they call a seaquake, which is an earthquake, but it happens at sea, under the ocean. And that can cause disruptions with the ship. And I think the big theory behind this is that the alcohol that they had on board,
the
denatured alcohol, if it was rattled around in an earthquake, seaquake, then the fumes inside could have gotten out and caused a bit of an explosion. Now, there was no damage on the ship, so it wasn't like that kind of explosion. But either a little explosion that they said could have popped off those hatch caps that were lying on the side of the doors. Or, even less than that, it wasn't enough to make them explode, but it was enough to open them. And that the fumes from this denatured alcohol caused problems for the ship and crew, and people were getting sick.
Okay.
And they were like, we can't be on this boat anymore. We have to get off. So that's why they took the lifeboat out. And whatever happened in the lifeboat is just what happened. Maybe they got lost at sea and just,
Yeah.
We don't know that part. But it seems pretty clear that somebody took the lifeboat.
Yeah. Okay. So there was no lifeboat.
And the compass, like I said, was missing, the ship's compass.
Yeah.
That was kept in a glass case. The glass case was broken, and the compass was missing. So it seems like somebody purposely broke the case, took the compass.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay.
So one of the theories that I think sounds the most plausible to me, goes along with what I was just talking about. And this is what they call the pump congestion theory. Because the Mary Celeste, like we said, had transported many different kinds of things across the Atlantic Ocean for 10 years or so. And one of the things it used to carry was coal. And coal apparently leaves behind a large amount of dust. If this dust gets into the machinery and the equipment on the ship, it can cause funky things to happen. Such as the bilge pumps, which are the pumps that pump the water. Because, if you have an old wooden boat, you're going to get water in the hull sometimes. So these bilge pumps will get rid of the water in the hull, right? But if they become clogged, because there's all this, carbon dust from this coal, then that can be a problem. If it gets into the other instruments too, you can be getting false readings. So they were saying that if this got into the compass, for example, then when they saw an iceberg or something else that they thought was a landmass, they think, oh, that must be this island that we know is on the route, whatever island it was, and we're close to it. So we're getting dangerous readings from our measurements saying that there's too much water in the hull, that we're gaining water very quickly. But these readings weren't accurate because it was actually just damaged equipment. And the ship is sinking. So we need to get off, and we're going to go to that island that we should be near according to our calculations.
Right.
Which are wrong.
But, yeah, there's no island.
So get in the lifeboat, and we're going to go head out there.
Yeah.
So to me, I think that sounds the most plausible.
Yeah.
It's not the most fun.
Right.
It's not a Kraken.
It's not. No.
It's not pirates.
No. It's not a scandal.
No. Well, you've heard it all. What are you thinking now?
I mean, I don't know. I guess that could be a theory. That seems like it could happen that way. Because there was no damage to the ship. There was no, say, like, people struggling.
Well, again, it depends who you ask, because some of the reports said that there were, like, cut marks on the ship and everything, but the other one said, like, no, that's just a natural.
Yeah, no, because I feel like if they were actually struggling, you would have seen that. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, and nothing was missing. Nothing was, like, ransacked.
Yeah. It just seems like they got off the ship.
Yeah.
I wish they had left a note.
You would think. But again, I think they're thinking
they have to get off right away.
The ship is sinking and we need to go.
Right.
Especially if his family's on board. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
To keep in mind. If he's got his wife and very young daughter, he's like, oh, I got to do my utmost.
Them. Right.
You know. So just to wrap up the story, the Mary Celeste then returned to work. They just put it right back to work. And it would sail under different owners and different captains for 12 years before its final captain really did deliberately run it aground.
What?
In Haiti. In an attempt to claim insurance on it.
Get out.
But he was discovered, like, pretty quickly.
Yeah, they figured it out.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
And no one knows what happened to the Mary Celeste after that. They think it just sank and they haven't found.
I want to call it the Mama Celeste.
You like the pizzas?
Yeah, I think I'm hungry.
Yeah. I think we always had Elios.
Oh, yeah.
Or Red Baron.
Oh, never had Red Baron.
I mean, I disagree with his politics. But he makes a fine pizza.
Very good. I'm sorry. I got off the subject.
It's all good. All right, Fatima. Now, when I asked you to come on and I said, look, it's just about a disappearance on a ship. It's not like a weird YouTube video or like a crazy murder. You were like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
You were more down for it all of a sudden.
I was, but I didn't know it was this kind of a ghost ship.
Oh, you thought it was like ghost?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did.
I probably will do a show about that at some point, but I think I've mentioned this on the show before. In general, there's like 2 or 3 types of ghost stories that for whatever reason, and I don't know really why, but for whatever reason they just bug me. It's plantations, boats, and lighthouses.
Wait, but do you remember that ghost we saw at the plantation?
George Washington.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, we talked about that on the show, right?
We did?
I think we did.
Okay.
If we didn't, let us know, and I'll tell Fatima to come back and we'll discuss
anyway,
this.
So you don't like ghost stories that involve plantations? Boats, and what was the other one?
Lighthouses.
Lighthouses.
I think it's just because I grew up like watching all these ghost shows, and they always had one about the Myrtles Plantation. They always had one about, is it the Queen Mary? Is that the...
Yeah.
And I forget what lighthouse, but some lighthouse. And I think I'm just sick of hearing about them.
Okay.
So I think that's really what it is. It's not really so much because the ghost stories are all the same. It's like, oh, I saw a thing and it like scared me and I was freaked out. That's every ghost story.
Yeah.
Like, You know,
Yeah.
it's not like, oh, and then he murdered a guy and everyone saw it and like, you know. So there's no like better ghost story really. They're all kind of the same, you know. But
All right.
But yeah, for some reason it's a. But someday we'll do something about a ghost on a boat. How about that?
Sounds good.
You look it up. You do the research this time.
Mm,
Why's it always got to be me? Just because it's my show?
Yeah. That's your thing.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. And of course, I hope you will share the show and leave some kind words on the iTunes review or wherever else you happen to be listening from. You can, again, find us at Spooky Ass Shit on both Instagram and Twitter. And check out spookyas.com or spookyasshit.com to find those links and to find us on Facebook and all that stuff. And, I should mention my show, Avenue Q,
Yes.
opens this Friday in Concord, Massachusetts
That's right.
at the Umbrella Stage Company, Boston's newest equity theater. And that should be fun.
That's going to be a lot of fun. I'm very
Yeah.
excited to see it.
Runs for a few weeks there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm back to the grind full time here. All right. So, all that said, I'm not a big fan of being on boats anyway, as longtime listeners will know about my thing with fish. Just the idea of being surrounded by fish and all that dirty water. No thanks. So maybe that's part of it too.
Maybe.
So until next time, stay off of boats and don't be afraid.